What if I told you the moment your life changes doesn't always come with noise? Sometimes it happens quietly, while you're asleep, and by the time you wake up, the rules you lived by no longer apply. My name is Hannah. I was 26 years old when I learned that being the reliable one in a family isn't a compliment. It's a position, and positions can be used. That night didn't begin with a fight. No raised voices, no warning signs, just exhaustion. I came home after a long shift, dropped my bag by the door, and placed my key fob on the kitchen counter. Same spot as always. I hesitated, not because anything looked wrong, but because the house felt tense, too still, like it was waiting for something to happen. As I passed the hallway, I noticed my sister's bedroom door was closed. She never shut it unless she didn't want questions. I registered it, told myself it wasn't my concern, and went to bed. I'd learned early not to push. A sound pulled me out of sleep sometime later. Soft, specific, metal brushing metal. I sat up. My heart started racing before my thoughts caught up. Then came footsteps, slow, deliberate, placed carefully to avoid the loud boards. I told myself it was my mom. She checked doors sometimes when she couldn't sleep. Still, I got up. The kitchen light revealed an empty counter. No keys, no fob. The tile was cold under my feet as I stood there listening. Then an engine outside, not loud, familiar. A low vibration that I'd heard 100 times before. Headlights swept briefly across the wall. I rushed to the window. Tail lights disappeared at the end of the street. My SUV, gone. My phone buzzed almost immediately. A message from my mom: "Don't overreact, it's handled. We'll explain later." Not sorry, not asking, just direction. I didn't sleep after that. I sat on my bed replaying older moments, the loan I was asked to cover just for now. The trip I canceled because my sister wasn't doing well. The way patience was always expected from me, never from her. I'd learned who was supposed to absorb the shock. By morning, I would see exactly how far that expectation went, and which one of us was meant to take the fall. Have you ever noticed how truth doesn't arrive all at once? Sometimes it comes in fragments, through pauses, word choices, and the way people avoid your eyes. Morning came without sleep. The house felt different in daylight. Smaller, exposed. Like everything that had happened overnight was now sitting out in the open. I was at the kitchen table when my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was the police. Before I could answer properly, my mom reached for the phone. Not asking, just taking it. Her voice shifted instantly into something calm and efficient, like she'd already decided how this conversation would go. "Yes," she said. "That's our vehicle." She listened. Her face moved through a few expressions in quick succession. Confusion first, then focus, then something controlled. When the call ended, she didn't look at me right away. "The car's been in an accident," she said. "Your sister's okay." She said that part quickly, like she needed it established before anything else. I was still stuck on accident, on my car, on how calmly those words were being used. Then she turned to me. "You're going to tell them you took it." Not loud, not angry, just certain. I stared at her, waiting for the rest of the sentence. An explanation, a reason, something, nothing came. My dad stood behind her, hands folded, eyes fixed on the floor. He didn't agree, he didn't disagree. He stayed neutral, the way he always did when picking a side would cost him something. "She panicked," my mom added. "You know how your sister is, you're stronger, you can handle this." That was the logic. Familiar, settled, final. I felt a strange disconnect then. Not calm exactly. More like my thoughts were moving a half second behind everything else. Because weeks earlier, I'd done something small that hadn't seemed important at the time. I'd switched the key fobs after my sister borrowed my car without asking, again, and I wanted to stop guessing which car was being taken. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't foresight. I'd even forgotten about it most days. Standing there, it came back to me slowly, uneasily. Mom started pacing, rehearsing versions of the story. Each one ended the same way, with me nodding. Accepting, carrying it, I stayed quiet, not because I agreed, because I needed to understand what was about to happen next. When the police arrived, the difference between what my mother assumed and what could actually be proven would finally matter, and not in the way she expected. Have you ever noticed how authority feels solid until it runs into documentation? The police arrived later that morning. Not rushed, not cautious, just methodical. 2 officers at the door, neutral expressions, already detached from whatever story they were about to hear. They looked around the house the way outsiders do. Shoes by the door, quiet rooms, an empty space where a car should have been. One of them asked where I'd been between 3 in the morning and sunrise. Before I answered, my mom spoke. She said I'd taken the car after getting upset, that I'd left in the middle of the night. Her tone was calm, almost practiced, like she was explaining an inconvenience, not an incident. The officer wrote it down, then looked at me, waiting. I said I'd been asleep, that my phone showed no movement, that my bedroom door had stayed locked. I offered to show them if they needed it. My mom added details that hadn't been asked for. The officers listened without reacting. Then one of them asked about the keys. I said I'd left them on the counter. Mom corrected me, said she'd moved them earlier for safekeeping. There was a pause, brief, controlled, enough to feel the room shift. The officer asked a clarifying question. Whose vehicle was registered to which key fob? My mom hesitated. I explained that the fobs had been switched weeks earlier. Not as a plan, just after my sister borrowed my car again and I needed to know which was which. They asked to see them. They compared numbers quietly. No announcements. No expressions, just verification. After a moment, they explained what they'd confirmed. The damaged SUV was registered to my mother, insured under her name, linked to her fob. That didn't assign guilt. It clarified responsibility. They outlined next steps, reports, insurance, follow-up statements. Not consequences yet, just process. When they left, the house felt emptier, not resolved, just changed. Clarification didn't end anything. It only moved the pressure out of the house and into systems that don't bend once records are set. Have you ever noticed how consequences don't always explode outward? Sometimes they narrow, quietly, until there's only one direction left to move. Nothing happened right away. That was the most unsettling part. No arguments. No confrontations. Just a pause, like everyone was waiting to see which version of the story would hold. The first follow-up came a couple of days later. Insurance. Routine questions. Timelines. Who had access to the vehicle? The voice on the line was calm, polite, and uninterested in family explanations. My mom handled most of it herself, confident with forms, comfortable inside systems. When she passed the phone to me, it was only for answers that needed to come from someone else. I kept my responses simple, only what could be verified. After that, the contact didn't stop, it thinned. Emails instead of calls. Neutral subject lines that carried weight. Additional documentation required. Statement clarification. Coverage review. Each message pushed the situation further away from something she could control with tone alone. At home, the pressure changed shape. My sister called once, asked if Mom was upset. She didn't ask about the car. She didn't ask about me. My dad stayed late more often. Not avoiding me exactly, just not present long enough to choose a side. My mom became precise. She started listing what I owed. Housing, utilities, groceries, not emotionally, logistically. Calm reminders like updating an account balance. That's when I understood. It wasn't about convincing me I was wrong. It was about making staying more expensive than leaving. A certified letter arrived. I didn't open it. I left it on the counter. My mom noticed it without touching it. She already knew what it meant. That night, she said we needed to get aligned. I didn't argue. I didn't agree. I started packing, not dramatically, just deliberately. Because systems don't rush. But once they move, they narrow your choices until standing still isn't neutral anymore. By the time the next notice arrived, the decision wasn't theoretical. It was already costing something. Have you ever noticed how leaving doesn't end things? It just changes which consequences you're close enough to feel. I moved out before the paperwork finished moving through the system. Not in a rush, not in secret. Just far enough that the daily pressure couldn't reach me anymore. It wasn't relief. It was quiet. The first weeks felt unsettled. I slept lightly. I checked my phone too often. Independence didn't arrive as freedom. It arrived as responsibility I couldn't redirect anymore. The certified letter eventually caught up with me, then another. Clarifications, follow-ups, requests that didn't accuse, didn't threaten, but didn't disappear either. The system wasn't angry, it was thorough. Insurance sorted itself out slowly, coverage adjusted, liability clarified, nothing dramatic. Just numbers recalculated and records updated in places I didn't control. At home, what used to be home, things thinned. My dad called once, asked where I was staying, said he hoped things would settle down. He didn't ask me to come back. He didn't say he understood. He said what he always said when outcomes became inconvenient. My sister never called again. My mom sent one message. Short, careful. She said we needed space, that things had gone further than she intended. She didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She reframed. I understood then that she wasn't trying to punish me anymore. She was trying to restore balance. But some balances don't reset once weight shifts. Living on my own cost more than I expected. Rent, utilities, groceries that were suddenly my responsibility alone. The cost of leaving didn't fade, it clarified itself. And still, I didn't regret it, because the pressure stopped changing shape. It no longer followed me room to room. It stayed where it belonged, in systems, in records, in decisions already made. I didn't win. No one apologized. No one collapsed. But something did end. The expectation that I would absorb damage quietly. If you've ever been the reliable one, the one expected to carry weight so others don't, this is what I learned. Clarity isn't loud. Boundaries aren't dramatic. And sometimes the bravest decision costs you more upfront, but saves you from paying forever. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe for more real, grounded narratives about choice, pressure, and consequence. Leaving didn't fix everything, but it made one thing permanent. I no longer lived inside a story someone else could rewrite.